Hey, this is Jesse Dickens. If you want to learn how to use your small axe to build an empire, you should be listening to the Small Axe Podcast with my good friend Nico.
Hey guys, it's your boy Nico here from the Small Axe Podcast. I want to show you how to use your small axe to build a lasting empire. You see, not everybody begins their investing career with millions of dollars, a huge network of investors, or the knowledge necessary to become successful in this space, and that's okay. What I focus on here on this podcast is helping you hone your skills, sharpen your tools to become the best investor that you can be. Now, I want you to sit back, relax, and enjoy this show. If you have any questions or you want to reach out to me or the guest, feel free to do so. Love you guys. Okay, my family, my people out there, my beloved listeners, I'm hanging out today with a cool dude named Jesse Dickens. Jesse has a background in cardiovascular sonography and is currently the director of operations for a mobile imaging center in Denver, Colorado. He got started in real estate in 2018 by getting involved with fix and flips. After successfully completing 3 flips, he decided to get into the multifamily space and joined the Wheelbarrow Profits educational platform to learn the ins and outs of the industry. Since then, he has purchased 341 units in Arizona and South Carolina. With strong teams and systems in place, the foundation is set for rapid growth in 2023 and beyond. My man, Jesse, welcome to the show.
Nico, good to be here, man. Thank you for having me.
You know, this is a long time coming, man. I'm super excited to finally get you on. We've known each other for a while, and I kind of went high level on your background. Maybe you can give the listeners some context about how you got to where you are today.
Sure, absolutely. And yeah, we've known each other for probably coming up on 3 years at this point, and it's been cool to just see the journey progress. So, um, I live in Denver, Colorado. My background is in cardiac sonography, so I'm an ultrasound technician. I specialize in the heart. I've been doing that for about 6, 7 years. I love what I do. I'm not one of the individuals that is just dying to get out of my profession. I spend a lot of time kind of developing my craft, and I love it. And I just I made a decision a few years back that I wanted to create a life where I could do that style of work when I want, for who I want, and what kind of clinics that I want. And building a quote unquote life by design, as we talk about, to create that. So I've been doing the real estate gig as we'll get into here for coming up on 3 years, and it's been a wild ride to say the least.
Yeah, man. Wild ride. That's right. Well, all right, cool. So I pronounced it right when I read it in the biosonography. I wasn't sure if that was exactly how to pronounce it, but you said it and I will go with it. And awesome, man. I love that you're doing that. Number one, it's some great work. My father had some heart issues growing, for years, and he had some excellent doctors that really helped his lifespan, extend for a long time. So thank you. And I appreciate that work that you do, man.
Absolutely.
Now, let's talk a little bit about multifamily. Was it Jake and Gino that got you started, or did you start prior?
It was. I had done a lot of research prior to that. I'd been kind of sitting on the sidelines for a couple of years. I knew that I wanted to be a real estate investor. I just didn't know what that looked like. I didn't know where to get started. So took the typical route, read the Purple Book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, got into Bigger Pockets, and it just started this crazy train in my head of, okay, what do I do with all this information? And it was kind of like system overload, and I didn't know where to get started. And it held me back for a while, and was waiting for a quote unquote market correction, and just didn't want to get in at the wrong time, didn't want to make mistakes. And then what happened for me was my child was born, and that just it just kicked everything into gear, and it said, this can no longer be theory, this has to be a mission with a plan of action. So I had decided through a bunch of research that rental real estate was the place I wanted to be. I didn't want to be a fix and flipper. I didn't really have a pull towards any other type of real estate, and quickly saw that the scalability aspect really happened and came to fruition with multifamily. So made the clear decision to jump into that, look through some different programs to get started, landed on Jake and Gino, and then just kind of hit the ground running.
Yeah, great background story, man. I'm kind of similar in the sense that, I was searching for, after my daughter was born as well, right? I knew that something had to change. I needed to change my lifestyle. I needed to really secure my future for my family. And, I stumbled also upon the Purple Bible, just like you, and just like so many of us, right? And really got interested in real estate, right? Because he preaches buy a business or buy real estate, really, as the two main ways to get rich. And I just loved the real estate. And I did the same thing. I interviewed some coaches, and I ended up finding Jake and Gino, loving their community, and jumped into it. Did you find your partners in the Jake and Gino community as well, or did you go at it alone at first? How was that journey for you?
Yeah, so it started off by kind of landing on a market, a spot that I wanted to be in. I landed on Arizona, being there were a lot of different metrics that it checked the boxes for, and being relatively close, being in Colorado, it was a spot that I wanted to be in. Some members of the community that I had connected with were also very interested in that market, so we started linking up and getting on Zoom calls. It was right at the start of the pandemic, so travel was a little bit difficult, but we started underwriting deals, connecting with brokers, building relationships, putting out LOIs, and then finally landed a property. I mean, we got a property under contract, and then we kind of had that oh boy moment of now how do we actually close this thing? And we had to add some additional partners and additional team pieces of the team that really allowed us to take it down. So, but yeah, the beginning of it started, the core of it started from the community.
Good for you, man. You see, some people like me, I didn't even have the guts to go in and get a deal under contract without having everything lined up. But I think that this is a testament to the fact that you don't need to know everything, but you need to have access to resources like you did, right? So you got a deal under contract, and then you made it happen by connecting the dots with resources that you had or network or whatever it was. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, part of it goes in line with the ready, fire, aim mentality of look, if you're waiting for everything to line up and everything to feel comfortable in every different aspect of whatever venture you're going to get into, that time may never happen for you. There will always be some excuse, some reason to hold yourself back, and sometimes you just have to take that leap of faith and jump into something and then figure it out. And for me, I've realized that when my back is up against the wall, uh, that's probably when I do my best work and can get things accomplished. When when you don't have earnest money on the line, when you don't have a closing date, when you don't have all these people that are relying on you to execute on what you said you were going to do, it's just easier to kind of fall back into the complacency of, well, I'll work on that tomorrow, or and then something comes up, something always comes up tomorrow.
Mhm.
So I think having your back up against the wall is kind of the best place to be at times.
I agree, man. I work like when I am under stress and there's like a million things that I need to handle for some reason, or my back's against the wall, like I just rock it, man. I guess we have similar personalities and characteristics. That's awesome. Hey, Jesse, let's jump into a little bit about the deal. What is it? Where was it in Arizona? How many units? Was it a syndication or a JV?
Sure. So that first one was a 24 unit in Tucson, Arizona. So that's kind of a secondary market off Phoenix, which is one of the reasons why we love it. And we ended up doing a JV on it. There's 5 partners on the deal. We all have our own roles and responsibilities. It's a C class property, probably a C plus area, and just well under market rents at the time that we purchased it. It was self managed and had there was a lot of meat on the bone. The property had good bones. It just needed some love and attention. So it was pretty clear that it was a pretty cookie cutter value add play, and it was a perfect property to get started with.
How did you find the deal?
Direct to seller. So we were cold calling and sending out mailers, and one finally hit. We found a gentleman who had some bad experiences with brokers in the past and had made a commitment to himself to never sell a property through a broker again. So he was kind of waiting for someone to reach out and make that connection. So It was
Whoa.
it was awesome. It was a great experience.
Holy crap, man. That's amazing. Now, so how long were you doing like direct to seller stuff and who was leading that?
So it was a combination. One of the team members that we have that's our boots on the ground. He also does some wholesaling in Phoenix and Tucson. So he headed up the campaign as far as direct to seller stuff. We were all getting on the phone, making cold calls, but it was actually a mailer that the seller responded to. So he led that process. We we were probably looking for somewhere in the 6 to 9 month range before we got that deal under contract. And with it being right at the start of COVID, it was almost a similar experience as what we're having now, where there's just this standstill, where there's this large discrepancy between buyers and sellers, and there's a lot of concern right now. Obviously, with interest rates, it's just hard to make deals pencil when 6 months ago they penciled at those current rates, and sellers have don't seem to have adjusted to that. And it was the same thing back in early 2020, where sellers were not willing to get rid of their properties at a discount just because there was a pandemic going on. And as buyers, I'm sure you remember, we were projecting for either no rent growth for sometimes 2 years, sometimes negative rent growth, just trying to be as conservative as possible. And if we knew what was going to happen was going to happen, I think we would have bought everything that we could have gotten our hands on.
Oh man, right? Hindsight. Geez.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, man. Really cool. And you see people out there who are listening and that, I'm like my mind is not set on whether or not I believe in direct to seller, but then I get stories like this. And you gotta realize that 6 to 9 months is what it can take sometimes. And sometimes you'll get a hit. And it went from a mailer. Do you have any insight onto what the mailer was like? Was it handwritten? Was it like a hand printed handwritten one, or just was it a standard mailer? Anything endearing written on there, or what was, you know, different about it, if anything?
I'm not really sure, to be honest. The guy that was leading that process was he changes it up based on his hit rate, based on how many calls he's getting off of that. He changes the color pretty frequently. He changes between handwritten and some stuff that's typed out. Um, Sometimes he'll make it pretty basic as far as, hey, we'd like to buy your property. We're not a broker. Give us a call. Sometimes it's a little bit more in depth. So I'm not sure what it was at that time. It was just kind of the perfect timing. And the thing about it is you just have to be putting yourself out there if you're going to go down that route. It's extremely arduous. It's very time consuming. You get a lot of angry individuals that you're dealing with, and you have to be in for the long run. And it's sometimes it's a lot easier to just go through a broker.
I know, I know. Is it worth it, right? If you're spending all this money, I know people that spend a lot of money on direct to seller campaigns, and that's what they do, and they make a lot of money, right? But if you're somebody like me, let's say, to set up a direct to seller campaign and do it for real and legit, it's going to cost me money and a lot of time. And then you know what? It might be worth it to just go through a broker at that point. It might be a similar cost, maybe not.
Yep.
I don't know.
And I think it all depends on the size of property you're going for as well. If
Hmm.
you're looking for stuff in the 5, 15, 20 unit range, you're probably going to have more success with finding mom and pop operators. I would think that once you get over 20, 30, 50 units, that success rate starts to dwindle pretty dramatically as you get more sophisticated investors that are not necessarily looking to sell off market. So I think it really just depends on what you're looking for.
Totally, man. All right, cool. Is the deal doing well? Is it as expected, or are you going to keep it, sell it? What is the deal with it?
Yeah, so because we were very uncertain about the economic times that were ahead of us, back then we put on long-term fixed rate debt. We were able to get Freddie SBL 10-year term, 3 years of interest only, mid threes rate, very, very safe. Uh, and because of that, that's going to be a buy and hold. And we don't have any investors in the deal. Looking back on it, one of the things that if I was able to do that over, I would probably have gone with a shorter term debt product to be able to do a refi and roll on that, because we're probably right now at the end of year 2. We've had that just under 2 years, and we're probably hitting our year 6 or 7 income projections just because of the insane rent growth that we had. Our expenses are also a little bit higher than we had anticipated, but overall our NOI is quite a bit further than we thought it would be. So looking back on it, it would have been a perfect refi and roll type of deal, but we took the safe, secure route, and we're fine with just holding on to it. It's a cash flow play, and we've done all the lifting on it, so it's in good shape.
That's awesome, man. And thank you for sharing that. Yeah, love it, man. I'm loving this. Now, Jesse, what did you do next? You still working? Did you look for other deals, stay around Arizona? What happened next?
Yeah, so we purchased two more deals in Arizona over the next probably 14 months. We purchased one in September of 21, and then we purchased one in February of this year. So we did our first syndication on the deal in February. So we raised capital for the first time. We felt pretty confident having two deals under our belt, and we really wanted to get that proof of concept, not so much for our investors, but for us to have the peace of mind to say, hey, if we're going to bring on investor capital, we want to feel really secure in being able to execute the plan. So all of our properties are within about a 4 mile radius, the same type of properties, the same age, the same amenities, the same demographics, and we just understand that market and that business plan and the execution of it. So we did the first syndication. It's going well. We're coming up on a year in that one. Projections are going where we thought they would be. As everyone preaches, we shoot for super conservatism, and are happy if we're able to over exceed that. But especially right now, as we're seeing rent pullbacks for the first time, as investors like you and myself who've been in the market for a couple of years, all we know is insane rent trajectory. That's what our experience is, and we knew,
Mhm.
and it had been preached that at some point the shoe is going to drop and things are going to shift. It was completely unsustainable to stay at that level. So when you're having 7, 10, 15% rent growth, it's hard sometimes to plug in your pro forma a 3% rent growth year over year. And we missed out on a lot of deals because of that. And I think you can relate to that. But it makes us feel so much more confident on the deals that we did land, that we're going to hit our numbers and we're probably going to over exceed them. So it's kind of the name of the game of how aggressive do you want to be. We have not felt confident enough to be as aggressive as some operators have. And, because of that, we're happy with what we're in. I think we wish we were in more deals, and we wish that, we had this exponential growth over the 2, 3 year period. We're happy that we also purchased a property in South Carolina a couple months back. We're entering into a new market. So we're happy with the growth in the trajectory, but at the same time, it's easy to get into this comparing mode when you're seeing other deals closing. You're seeing this massive trajectory and growth in certain companies, and you want that for your own. But we also want to feel confident in doing things on a step by step basis, and just doing them the right way.
That's the way to do it, man. Awesome. I love it. Now, the South Carolina deal, I don't want to jump ahead, but that deal, I'm assuming that was a JV because you mentioned the one prior was a syndication.
The one prior was a syndication. We did a syndication on this one as well.
Oh,
So that
cool.
was a co-GP deal. So we teamed up as we're entering this new market. We wanted to do a deal with some operators that were heavily involved in the market. So we have some true boots on the ground that manage about 400 units in that specific market for Greenville, South Carolina. We're able to team up with them and just lean on their experience, have a smaller role in the property and the execution, but that's a market that we want to enter on our own. So we really wanted to be able to ease into it and do a co-GP. So we raised on that deal as well.
Cool, man. So the other, so you said within about a 4 mile radius is where you have your three properties, I believe, in Arizona, and one of them was a syndication. Let's talk a little bit about that and how big was that deal?
Sure, it was a 28 unit. Like I said, about 4 miles away from the first property that we bought. It was a little bit of a newer property, had a pool, which our first property didn't. So we actually liked some of the foundation of it a little bit more, but it was just a little bit rougher. It was it's the same demographic, it's the same type of property, but the way that it had been run previously was just the self management that we dealt with on the first property. It made it look really good because the this management, which was a quote unquote professional management company, was just they just let anyone in there, no credit checks, heavy delinquency. So the turn process
Mm,
has been heavier than expected, and it's challenging. There's no way around it. We're through the heavy lift part, but we're in the process of the of full on rebranding. So we've done the rebranding process of changing the name and changing we're in the process of changing the tenant base and really changing the culture that's there, because it was what has been there previously has just been really rough. So yeah, it it was difficult because it the property didn't necessarily come as advertised, and the broker, they're one of the really active brokers in the space, and the information that we got on it was not fully accurate. We had hard earnest money on the line, and we actually had to go back and ask for some credits, which we didn't think that we were going to be able to get with hard earnest money. We thought that they easily could have said, you know what, if you need that credit, then you can just move on, and we'll hold on to that earnest money and move on to the next buyer. And luckily, we were able to work something out to where it still made sense, because we were at a point where we probably weren't going to move forward with it, especially with investor capital on the line. We would have rather taken a loss ourselves than put their capital at risk when we thought we were getting into a really risky situation. So
oh man, I've been there, man. Been there, and I know it. I know the feeling. It's crazy. And wow, man. Yeah, good job. Good job doing that. It's risky. And I've seen it go both ways. I've seen sellers give the credit, and I actually got credit as well in this past deal. But I've also seen sellers say nope, sorry, and relist it, take that EMD and relist it. So
yep.
good job in negotiating that, man.
Yeah. Oh, and congrats on your 44 unit, by the way.
Thank you, my
That's
man.
awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. That was a long time, man. It was a long and windy road, but I made it happen, dude. And I'm real excited. We're already hitting, projections. We closed on 16 of the 44 units about a month and a half ago, and we're already doing great with it. So I'm excited for it. But thank you, man.
That's awesome. I can't wait to see how that thing progresses.
Yeah, it's going to be good, man. Now, what are you thinking about for 2023? What are you doing right now with these crazy interest rates and the inflation and the world falling apart? Supposedly, what's happening in your world now?
Absolutely. We're still looking. We're still on the hunt, and underwriting deals, most of them are just not making sense. There's also not a lot of transactions that are happening. There's not a lot of deals on the market. Sellers, for the most part, understand that we're at this limbo spot. So if there's not an immediate urge to sell, or if there's not a willingness to look at creative financing, then most deals are just not working. So
Mhm.
we are just continuing to build our relationships, especially moving into a new market, trying to get down there and just build and nurture those relationships and be prepared. We really think that there's going to be a lot of activity, especially in the second half of 2023. Kind of the way that we're approaching it is looking at the fact that interest rates have risen faster than they ever have on such a short timeline. It's created this insane disconnect between buyers and sellers. So unless there's a serious motivation to sell, sellers are just not selling. But as over the course of 2023 and maybe even into 2024, as sellers over the past couple of years that have put bridge debt on that is coming due are coming up on that term, and they're forced to either refinance or sell, and it was in the business plan to refinance. If you're now looking at rates anywhere from 5, 6, 7%, and maybe you were underwriting at 4 to 5, it's going to bring more deals to the marketplace. So we want to be as prepared as we can for that. I don't necessarily think it's going to be a quote unquote blood in the streets kind of situation, but I also think that a huge part of it is the fact that a lot of buyers have just said, you know what, we're just going to sit things out for a couple of
Mhm.
years and kind of wait for the bottom, the trough. And we are trying to avoid that and just be as active as we can. So when that shift really starts to happen, we are well positioned and have deep relationships with the individuals and the teams that are going to allow us to close more deals. So we're still looking. We're in negotiations on a little 17 year right now. It would be a JV, but for the most part, it seems like there's a lot of stuff is standing still.
Gotcha, man. Very well said. Great perspective, great outlook, and great rundown. Now, are you guys still doing DTS?
We haven't. This deal that we're looking at just kind of came randomly from a relationship from a financial advisor that just knew that we were in multifamily and has a client that owns a property that again does not want to sell through a broker. So
Hmm.
reached out to us. We haven't done any DTS in a little while, especially because we're targeting some larger assets as we're starting to bring some investor capital to the deal. We're really looking for the 50 and up unit count range. So we haven't been doing direct to seller. It's something that we would consider, but I don't think that we're going to go down that route. I think it's going to primarily come from broker relationships. And
Cool, man.
part of the reason why we were doing direct to seller is because we couldn't get their attention. You know,
Hmm.
we call brokers up and say, hey, we're getting into multifamily, we're looking for some property, and we weren't getting calls back.
No love, no love from the brokers, right?
And the funny thing is, the second that we closed on that deal, we had a couple brokers reaching out to say congrats on that. We didn't see it come on the market, so it must have been an off market deal. And right off the bat, it created a little piece of credibility. And then we were able to close a couple deals with that one specific broker that uh, and that was all because we had done a transaction, and
Hmm.
on both of those deals we were not the highest bidder, but he was able to convey to the seller that he had more confidence in us being able to close. So it's amazing how much of a relationship game this thing really is, and you really look for win-win scenarios for all parties involved. It doesn't have to be one side wins, one side is the loser in a transaction. You can really come up with win-win solutions. And when you put that at the forefront, those are the individuals that really find and keep success in this business, from what I've seen.
Dude, love it, Jesse. Thank you, man. I agree. All right, let's rock. Let's transition to the final question. And then we're going to get people some form of contacting you to have a further conversation, hang out with you, talk a little bit more about Tucson or South Carolina, Greensville area, wherever you're going to be, people are going to want to reach out to you. So let's
Sure.
do this. Let's imagine it was 100 years from now. You have great grandchildren, they're super happy, and they want to write a book about great grandpa Jesse. What do you want them to title this book?
It is definitely the most interesting question that I have been asked before. And I think the title of it would be Jesse Dickens, the story of the man that wouldn't give up chasing his dreams. And I think it's simply, as we were talking before we got on the air, life has taken several different turns, and this is not where I expected to be if you were to ask me 5, 10 years ago. And I decided to dedicate my life to one thing. I went to school for music and had went all in on that. And when that path came to somewhat of a dead end, I turned and I said, okay, we're gonna take that knowledge information, we're gonna go down this other path, and then put my heart and soul into doing that and getting to the medical field. And like I said, I love what I'm doing, but I've also realized kind of the holes and the fallacies of that W-2 life. So now I've turned my energy onto this other path and gone down this multifamily route and still doing that while working full time. And it's sometimes it's just, we talk about this phrase, make it happen. And sometimes that's all you can say is, hey, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to make it happen. and I think there just has to be some resiliency because I think, as you can attest to, part of this process is getting knocked down and
Mhm.
missing out on offers or having deals fall out of contract or having relationships, business relationships, not go the way that you thought they were going to. There's been times for me at least where I've thought about, did I make the right choice? Was this the right choice for me to do? And it's really hard to fight those mental hurdles when they come up. And sometimes you just have to remember the phrase, make it happen. I don't care how you do it, just do it. So
Love it.
I think that's been kind of the story for me, and hopefully my great great grandkids will think that.
Awesome, man. I love it, Jesse. Well, I had a super amazing time hanging out with you today, catching up, hearing a little bit more of your story that I didn't know, learned a lot about you, and I'm really excited to have my listeners kind of hear about you and your story as well. So thank you. I truly appreciate you coming on today. Now, Jesse, let's get people some form of contacting you.
Sure. So our company name is Wealth Care Capital Partners. So we took a little spin on my partners are healthcare professionals like myself. So we put a little spin on healthcare and we made it Wealth Care. So you can find us at our website, wealthcarecap.com. My email is jesse@wealthcarecap.com. Would love to connect with anyone that wants to chat about anything. And yeah, feel free to reach out.
Dude, that's amazing, man. I love it. You guys are cool. Thank you, Jesse. Hey, man, you have a great day, and let's keep chatting.
You as well, Nico.
All right. Hey, Small Axe community. I would like to say thank you for listening to another episode of my podcast where we show you how to use your small axe to build a lasting empire. Now, if you liked what you heard, it would mean the world to me if you would subscribe, leave a 5-star rating, and write a review. Also, if you want to get in touch with me, go to my website at smalaxecommunities.com. Book a call with me. And until the next episode, keep sharpening those axes.